The entire battle can be summarized quite simply. They push, we push. Super Air had 7 megacities, each with its own independent occupation progress bar. Each hour, the liberation value will decrease based on the current invasion rate. For example, if a city had an invasion rate of 3.6%, it meant the city lost 3.6% of progress per hour. Helldivers could choose to deploy to any megacity where the battle had begun but had not yet been fully occupied. By completing missions, they would increase the liberation progress, which was directly added to the defense value, offsetting the invasion rate. At the start of the campaign, Eagleopolis, Remembrance, and Equality on Sea came under attack one after another. Helldiver forces were spread thin, and the overextended front lines from fighting on 3 fronts meant that none of the resistance efforts managed to surpass the invasion rate. Eagleopolis was nearing collapse on the 22nd and fell on the 23rd. Facing fierce, unrelenting assaults, the fall of the megacities seemed only a matter of time. This was not only due to the gradual disadvantage caused by divided forces. A more pressing reality was that Helldiver counterattacks were peak-based. During times where players were either working or sleeping, there was almost no capacity to resist the invasion. With Eagleopolis fallen, the Illuminate had shifted their main forces to attack the 4th city, Administrative Center 02. The stretched front lines could no longer muster enough Helldivers for defense, and Admin Center fell within 24 hours. The timing was brutal. Remembrance fell just half an hour later. Soon, only Equality on Sea remained of the initially contested 4 cities. This was an inevitability revealed by chance. The Helldiver community can roughly be divided into European, American, and Chinese Helldivers. Not all groups had the opportunity to defend their home cities, but among those that did, the Chinese Helldivers possessed the most concentrated numbers and unwavering resolve. Equality on Sea, Shanghai, inevitably became the rallying point for the vast majority of Chinese Helldivers who were determined to hold every inch of ground. With no other cities left to defend, all participating Helldivers converged on Equality on Sea. This not only allowed the peak liberation value to surpass the invasion rate, but also, with the help of friends from the West, enabled Chinese Helldivers to maintain the front lines even during their off hours. The first rally at Equality on Sea was a turning point. Shanghai became the first city that still stood. More importantly, the rally made all Helldivers realize that only through cooperation could cities be held under the intense assault. After the brief contact and quick victories, the Illuminate launched another multi-pronged attack in an attempt to stretch the front lines again. York Supreme came under assault. Helldivers from both sides of the world now defended their own countries. York Supreme also held significant appeal for American Helldivers, so for a time, EOS and York Supreme stood firm at opposite ends of the earth. On one side, Destiny made manifest, on the other, the Endless Ocean. The York Supreme Helldiver Command, led by the Kais Commandos, and the Equality on Sea Helldivers Expeditionary Force issued a joint communique. They agreed to coordinate actions and unify strategic objectives. Helldivers from both sides began fostering friendly mutual support, covering for each other during unfavorable time zones. Many friendships were forged in this way. Although the Illuminate attacked Port Mercy, forcing Helldivers to divide their forces again, the situation was no longer as dire as before. But good times are often short-lived. A global major order failed. This MO required a certain number of Helldivers to successfully evacuate from missions within a time limit, but failed at 97.3% progress, just a hair's breadth from success. The next task required Helldivers to head to the Western Front to eliminate 200 million automatons to repair the previously attacked DSS. At this stage, since it was unpredictable whether the station would require multiple MOs to activate or what its effects would be, this order was widely seen as a trap to thin our forces further. Still, some Europeans and American Helldivers went to reinforce the Western Front and participated. The skyline of York Supreme was shrouded in gloom. Stratagem beams pierced through the clouds, struggling to hold up the sky. Helldivers from various divisions fought side by side there, battling enemy air superiority against a torrent of purple. Among the Helldivers dropped by super destroyers warping to their reinforcements were those with Chinese call signs. Some fellow Helldivers showed them great kindness and enthusiasm, while more fought alongside them in silent solidarity against their common enemy. Many saw only Chinese IDs like their own when reinforcing. No need for words, no need for questions, we are Helldivers. May 28th, what felt like the longest day in the world. The invasion rates on 3 fronts reached 4.8%, and the total attack intensity of the war reached an unprecedented 14.4%. It was clear that holding all 3 megacities was impossible. Trying to defend everywhere would mean being weak everywhere. As a last resort, both sides decided to strategically abandon Port Mercy and focus on defending their home cities while providing mutual reinforcement. That afternoon, Port Mercy fell, and the front line contracted once more. The tightening front lines objectively aided the defense, but this costly opportunity was also fleeting. After occupying Port Mercy, the Illuminate continued to reinforce and suppress both cities. An invasion rate of 6.6% on 2 fronts made the original plan to hold both cities nearly impossible. Even during peak hours, EOS could only barely hold the line. The negative impact of losing cities was also unprecedentedly severe. Beyond the front lines, Chinese social platforms began focusing on the defense of Shanghai. Many enlisted on the spot and joined the battle. Veterans and officers drawn from high-intensity fronts mixed with them, conducting rush training before throwing them back into the life and death struggle. Meanwhile, there was almost no room to stand in the streets of York Supreme. The Illuminates' massive invasion forced a cruel choice upon the Helldivers. The 6.6% invasion rate compelled Chinese Helldivers to return to defend EOS, making large-scale reinforcements of York Supreme impossible. Both cities were in peril. York Supreme could not wait for the wave of counterattacks from its local Helldivers. Most of the American Helldivers fighting at the time chose to reinforce Shanghai. Some Helldivers chose to live and die with their hometown, fighting to exterminate the squid there until the last bullet, holding the last brick and tile, until the bitter end. Around 9:30, York Supreme fell. Good night, York Supreme. Every soul whispered a name. Every pair of eyes watched the same rain. Equality on sea, swaying in the downpour. The fall of York Supreme severely hampered logistics, reducing Helldiver reinforcement budgets for missions by 40%. This, layered with various material shortages caused by previous city losses, suddenly tips the scales of survival. As if misfortune wasn't enough, the invasion rate on EOS alone reached 7.8%. The counterattack began to gradually decline. It was almost 10 PM and many Helldivers had to withdraw from the battlefield. The front lines could only barely hold. There was nothing we could do aside from pessimistically saying, hold firm and there will be a way. No one knew if they would still see Shanghai when they woke up the next day. Perhaps Equality on Sea would collapse tonight. An invasion rate of 7.8 couldn't be resisted outside peak hours. We scurried through the street like rats, hit like cockroaches, and fell like rain.
Allied destroyer has joined.
Around 11 PM, the first wave of the vast ocean's tide began to wash over the shores of the Huangpu River again. Helldivers of the West rallied at the Equality on Sea, reinforcing the already exhausted Chinese Helldivers. It was a delay of a death sentence, a shot of adrenaline, a transfusion of blood, and this was Equality on Sea, standing unyielding in the storm. Many Helldivers returned to the front lines. The liberation rate once reached over 10%, reclaiming EOS at a rate of 3% per hour. Though we might still lose it soon, now everyone would fight for it. For Equality on Sea, for York Supreme, for their respective hometowns, not just for the symbol of Super Earth. Time advanced relentlessly, and the longest day finally drew to a close. At midnight that night, Helldivers from the Automaton front returned with reinforcements. They brought back the DSS, our Beast of War, our orbital fire support and delivery platform, later hailed as Yorktown. The teams that had divided forces to the Western Front were controversial at the time. It was unknown whether the space station could be deployed immediately after this operation. No one knew where it was or what it could bring. Disaster had united us, but it had also made us suspicious. Now we know.
Democracy Space Station is ready.
It began relentlessly deploying Eagle Storms across the entire region, friendly close air supports conducting strafing runs. Helldivers on the ground at the time reported the sudden appearance of the Eagles, spewing fire before departing just as swiftly. Meanwhile, high above in orbit, the DSS went into overclock, imposing an orbital blockade above Equality on C. The invasion rate was forcibly suppressed to 3.6. In the storm, the Helldivers stood firm, Equality on C stood proud. The strategic counteroffensive had begun. The next morning, the progress of reclaiming EOS continued. Despite an invasion rate of 6.6%, Helldivers maintained a net liberation rate of over 10%, steadily suppressing the Luminate. The support and supplies from the DSS temporarily bandaged the wounds left by the fallen megacities. The stabilization after the disaster spurred an even greater wave of counterattacks. That evening, EOS's defense value was maxed out. No matter how the Illuminate attacked, they couldn't push the liberation progress below 99%. Meanwhile, Prosperity City finally unveiled itself, still half-shrouded in mystery. Yet the battle for Prosperity City was no longer worth detailing. The Illuminate's fleet strength had dropped to less than 10%. Even if Prosperity City were abandoned, the Squids lacked the strength to capture it before being annihilated. This final push was nothing more than the delirious raving of a madman, utterly meaningless. At this point, the outcome was set. At 7:30 PM on May 30th, Super Earth was fully liberated. Only with fierce patience shall we conquer the brilliant city that brings light, justice, and dignity to humanity. Only then will our songs of praise not be sung in vain.